the TikTok saga that keeps on going.
So I was on the app when it shut down. And I was like, maybe this is life after TikTok. I won't go home and scroll. I do think it's kind of funny that labels just did not take this ban seriously until the very, very end. And then they call the one guy that they know who knows YouTube. I can't blame them. Frankly, I'm tired. Let's make a choice. Either let's keep it or let's ban it so the music industry can decide what they're going to do.
There hasn't been movement, which makes me wonder, does ByteDance really want to entertain those offers?
These people who are looking to buy TikTok, I mean, are they going to get the algorithm with it or not? Because the algorithm is the only reason why TikTok is so special.
Potential owners give these a rank of 1 to 10 based on 1, we don't think there's any chance in hell that this company will ever own a meaningful stake, to a 10 being, I could actually see that happening. Are you ready?
Okay, I think of all of these, this is one of the more likely ones.
Let's fast forward. It's December 31st, 2025. What will the parent company be of TikTok's US operations?
I'm gonna go with...
We're gonna talk all about the social media platform that has had more drama than an on-again, off-again relationship and more false starts than a backup offensive lineman. Yes, we're talking about TikTok because this saga feels like a Aaron Sorkin screenplay that is directed by Oliver Stone that gets 8 Oscar nominations and gets 0 wins. Those are the times that we're in, and I'm not just talking about the past 2 weeks. I'm talking about the past few years. Let's go back to 2019. The United States initiated a national security review into ByteDance's acquisition of Musical.ly. That same year, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta, had met with then President Trump to discuss some of his concerns over ByteDance, TikTok, and its influence on the American citizens, specifically from the Chinese government. Then in 2020, the election year, things started to heat up. Donald Trump had signed an executive order that called for either a ban from its US operations or a sale to a United States entity specifically for those US operations. Those talks and efforts fizzled out, and then in 2021, when the Biden administration came into power, Biden revoked that executive order. But then again, in 2024, an election year, Donald Trump started to change his tune a bit. Could it be because one of his new backers, Jeffrey Yass, and his company owns a 15% stake in ByteDance? Could it be because Donald Trump had a long-standing issue with Meta and saw that as the company that potentially could gain the most from a TikTok ban? Meanwhile, the Biden administration had signed another executive order, this one very similar to the one that Trump had signed in 2020, which called for, again, either the ban or sale of TikTok. But this time, as things got closer to election day, things did not fizzle out. And it got very close to that January 19th deadline, which was the date that an action had to be taken. The app did shut down temporarily for a few hours. Anyone that opened the app immediately saw it. In a notice that thanked President Trump and others for their efforts to keep the app alive, TikTok was brought back to life. And even though it's no longer on the App Store, it is still operating as is as of this recording. In the meantime, though, since the inauguration, there have been several rumors about the potential new owners that could be interested, like Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Mr. Beast, and several others. It's very interesting to think about TikTok within the lens of both Donald Trump, but also Taylor Swift. For very different but potentially similar reasons, both Trump and Swift saw the power that TikTok could have with their own endeavors and their business and their careers. And despite the actions and stances that their respective organizations had, they still wanted to go and pursue direct deals and have things continue as usual on that platform. That just speaks to the power and influence that social media platforms, but specifically TikTok, has today. And to break it all down and discuss in more depth, I'm joined by Kristin Robinson from Billboard. She writes a lot about TikTok and several other topics, so she was great to have on. Hope you enjoy. Let's dive in. All right, we're here to talk about the TikTok saga that keeps on going. We're here with Kristin Robinson from Billboard. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
The past week, things really ramped up, and I guess a good place for us to start. Did you think that it was going to play out the way that it has this past week?
I mean, it's been really surreal. I'm a pretty avid user of TikTok myself. So I was on the app when it shut down, when it popped up the message that it was no longer available in the US. And during that message, they also gave a shout out to President Trump, as they called him, even though he had not been inaugurated yet. So it was a really strange weekend, scrolling until I couldn't scroll anymore. And then within, I remember like I logged off after they shut it down. I went to get dinner and I was like, wow, maybe this is like, maybe this is life after TikTok. I won't go home and scroll after this. And within 14 hours, it was back. just like normal. And there was yet again another pop-up message thanking President Trump for his efforts. And what is so strange about that is Trump was kind of part of the initial reason why we're here in the first place. He was the one, like during his administration, who started pushing for the ban from the White House. So quite an interesting turn of events.
And I'm sure for you as a TikTok creator yourself, I've followed your videos. And I think on one of the early videos, you said, hey, I'm going to start this channel. We'll see how long it stays. I don't know if this thing's going to get banned, but I think people appreciated it because you're like, hey, I know a lot of you may not be reading billboard.com for the latest news, but let me break down some key insights.
Yeah, it's super unique. I got on the app because the discoverability of being on TikTok is so amazing. You know, it feeds out videos that I make or any other creator makes to so many people that otherwise never would see the stuff that I was making on a traditional social media platform. And so I started doing it, to illuminate the stories that we're doing at Billboard. And I've had a lot of fun doing it. But I think that the plan is that I'll post on TikTok till the end, if there is an end, and also just try to also post those same videos on other short form apps. And I think that's what a lot of other musicians are going to be doing as well.
Especially as people are figuring out what new ownership looks like, if there will be new ownership. But then there's also Trump's ongoing frustrations with Meta and Mark Zuckerberg and not wanting to see that company potentially be the benefactor of a TikTok ban. And we could go on about why Trump has his issues with Meta, but there's also Trump's own re-election campaign himself and how him leaning into TikTok and the push of the quote unquote youth vote and being influential and huge on those platforms and reaching the type of podcasters and others that have viral clips that go pretty wide on that platform. So it's just been very fascinating to watch everything leading up the past few years that brought us to the point for the past month.
I've started to see people calling the 2024 election in retrospect as the podcast election. And I don't think that that's not a great phrase for it, because that's true. Podcasts played a very big role in Donald Trump reaching the voters that needed to be mobilized in order for him to win, especially young men. But I would also argue that it was the TikTok election. TikTok was not quite as big in 2020 as it was in 2024. Kamala Harris, I think, probably did a little bit of a better job at capturing people on TikTok. I have seen some stats on that have supported that. Unfortunately, I don't have them up right now, but feel free to fact check me at home. But I think that it really played a huge role, whether it's podcast clips from some of Trump's interviews that went viral, or it was like the brat Kamala memes that were going around. If TikTok were to get banned or to go away before the next election, I'm very curious to see how politicians will navigate reaching young voters.
I've also had some questions about the narrative around the podcast election, because there's also some stats I've seen that have called that into question, right? There was this analysis I saw from Entertainment Strategy Guy, and he had this breakdown looking at the average viewership that Joe Rogan episodes get on YouTube. And I think it was maybe around 2 or 3 million, maybe 4 million views for most episodes. But then the Trump interview was like 46 million or something crazy. Wow. So that the question was, okay, is it really Joe Rogan that brought those listeners to the platform, or was it Donald Trump himself? And I think what gets lost with that nuance too is it's not like Harris didn't go on podcasts. Call Her Daddy, All the Smoke, Club Shay Shay. Those are popular podcasts as well that are often in the top 50, at least for US listeners.
Yeah, totally. And I also want to touch on what you said about Joe Rogan. I also think that we're probably discounting the role that YouTube played in this election. YouTube, I feel like, tends to get discounted in general a little bit. It is so important for podcasters. It also just is still just a really valuable platform for thinking about the music business and music marketing. It's still a really powerful platform for musicians. I do think YouTube Shorts is on the rise. So I think that we have to keep our eye out on YouTube as things develop. It clearly is still a very powerful platform and growing in new ways. If TikTok really is actually going to go down, what are we going to do on there? I do think it's kind of funny that labels just did not take this ban seriously until the very, very end, and then they call the one guy that they know who knows YouTube. But I can't blame them. I feel like there have been so many false starts with this thing that even I didn't really know what to think or believe when all of this was happening. And I still don't. I don't really know if I believe that it's going to go down for good or have to sell.
How many senators have we heard call for the breaking up of Meta and questioning the acquisitions of WhatsApp and Instagram and whether or not those should or shouldn't have happened? And those conversations haven't really gone anywhere. We've been how many months or how many years now with the desire for people to break up Live Nation and Ticketmaster? Where have those things necessarily gone either? And TikTok seemed like it was gearing up for a lot of that too. But on the other hand, because the app was only really shut down for 14 hours, part of me does pause and say, okay, how much of that was because that really needed to happen, or how much of that was a marketing ploy to just garner more attention for what may happen?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to know what to believe. And frankly, I'm tired. Like, let's make a choice. Either let's keep it or let's ban it so the music industry can decide what they're going to do, and let's move on. But it'll keep going on, I'm sure.
So let's talk about some of the options here about how this has been laid out and where this looks. Trump says that he wants the United States government to own a 50% stake because he feels that he and the government is essentially the kingmaker of this, that is allowing this to thrive, and wants the government to be part of that. When I hear that, part of that sounds like communism to me, which doesn't exactly line up with what a capitalist society would want. But what strikes me the most interesting, though, is that there are a lot of people that have thrown their name in the ring, or even before the ban came to a head the way that it did. And there hasn't been movement, which makes me wonder, does ByteDance really want to entertain those offers, even if things are being pushed to a head?
Yeah, I think also something that should be considered when thinking about these people who are looking to buy TikTok is, I mean, are they going to get the algorithm with it or not? Because the algorithm is the only reason why TikTok is so special. Like, there are other short form video apps out there. I'm already on Instagram. It would be very easy for me to switch over to Reels. The reason why I'm on TikTok is because of the algorithm. And it seems like there's a very good chance that maybe the algorithm doesn't go with TikTok. So I'm curious to know, like, how valuable TikTok would be if the algorithm itself did not go with it.
I'd have a hard time believing it'd be that valuable for exactly what you said. And we've heard the TikTok team, I forget if it was Shu Chu, the CEO specifically, but they had said, hey, we wouldn't sell the algorithm as part of this. And if you don't have that, then what is it?
Yeah, and we've seen on other platforms that people might say they've, like, quote unquote gone downhill since their peak. Like Facebook, some people don't love Instagram too much anymore. Twitter, certainly, under Elon Musk, has changed a lot. We've seen that when they tweak the algorithm of what you're seeing on your newsfeed or your For You page, whatever you want to call it, if that's tweaked with too much, it really has a gigantic impact on user experience and can make or break an app. So, of course, all of those apps are still very popular. I don't want to discount that. But, you know, I do think there's like a possible future where TikTok gets sold, the algorithm changes drastically, and TikTok doesn't die out right away. It just kind of like starts getting crappier, and then people move on. Are you on TikTok yourself?
So I have accounts for me personally and for Trapital itself. Use them sporadically over the years, but have not been a regular user.
Got it. Got it. Like I said earlier, I was on until the bitter end when they stopped me from scrolling. And it was funny, like a lot of these creators started this trend where they would talk about big secrets that they would share with their following. They're like, since this app is getting banned, I might as well tell you XYZ. People were saying crazy stuff like, you know, PR relationships that they were in that actually weren't real. Or one girl said that, like, was claiming to have a twin on her profile this whole time. And then she was like, that actually was me. Like, people were saying crazy stuff as if no one would ever see them again. And I think that that was super short-sighted because we're back. And it was very awkward to come back and be like, dang, y'all really said all of that out loud. But I think it really goes to show that there's a lot of people who have become creators on TikTok because TikTok is really good at serving you out to new people, helping you gain a following faster than any other platform. They're kind of like, if TikTok's gone, that's almost it for them. Like, they haven't been able to carry those followers over, and they almost just felt like, screw it, this is what I have. And if it's gone, then it's gone. So I think a lot of musicians are going to be feeling that way as well. Like they might stay on TikTok to the bitter end because it's where their biggest following is. But yeah, I think the algorithm is everything.
That's hilarious. People treated those last few hours like it was the night before graduation or some other type of event to be like, hey, let me throw the Hail Mary out there.
I know. I was like, guys, like most of them still do have other public accounts. It's they might not be quite as popular, but it's like, did you really think that no one was ever going to see you again? Like,
especially in the digital age. That's what's wild.
Like there are some things that people should not have admitted, but it was entertaining. I'll tell you that.
Hearing that almost reminds me of the days on Clubhouse where people would just start getting active in those rooms, but they would still just say some wild shit there when they were arguing back and forth to be like, whoa, you know that there are 3,000 people listening to this conversation right now, and many of them that have pretty large followings and reporters and others themselves. Yeah,
I know. RIP Clubhouse. Actually, it might still be around, but I mean, that was a moment in the pandemic. It was so funny. There were people that were talking about the music industry at like all hours of the day, the same people. And I know we both know who they are. And I was always like, guys, don't y'all have jobs? Like, how are we hanging out on Clubhouse all the time? But it turned out that app didn't really last.
Another reminder that if things come and go or if things don't quite work out the way they did, people will flock to something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's really interesting about all this is I'm pretty sure Triller is technically still around, but no one talks about Triller. So.
Oh, wow. You bringing us back with that shout out.
Sorry, Triller, if anyone from Triller is listening to this. But yeah, I mean, in Elias's reporting and in my conversations, just generally, Triller does not come up as an alternative. So, I mean, that's anecdotal, of course, but you'd think that maybe they would come up in the conversation more as someone who is like an early competitor of TikTok. But I think that really it's a Reels and Shorts world.
Yeah. Peak Triller was around Versus time, and whenever there was that Jake Paul and Nate Robinson fight, these are all peak pandemic things, of course, that I'm mentioning right now. And I think that ever since then, I believe between some of the back and forth about licensing disputes between them and I think Universal and accusations of inflated numbers, I should say, I think there was a bit of the steam lost in that engine. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how this all plays out.
Yeah.
We should talk about some of the potential owners or the next homes if TikTok does end up being sold or if some other company does end up buying it. And we should go through and give these a rank of 1 to 10 based on 1, we don't think there's any chance in hell that this company will ever own a meaningful stake, to a 10 being, I could actually see that happening. So are you ready? I'm going to run through these and let's go through them. So 1, I probably already teased this one earlier, but the U.S. government, where do you put that on a scale of 1 to 10, owning a 50% stake, as Trump said?
I mean, admittedly, I'm not an expert in politics. I feel like this feels very unlikely. I do think that it should always be said, though, that under Donald Trump, I really don't know what's possible. So I'm going to give this a 4.
Oh, that's higher than me. I'm going to give it a 2. I'm going to give it a 2 because even though Trump does have the push, I think there are even certain things that feel out of his stretch. And it's not like everyone that is in Congress on his party is behind this. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has been one of the strongest proponents against TikTok and wants to see it ended and has called it Chinese spyware that is ruining the minds of children. And I don't think he's alone in that. So I think that I'd be very surprised if that ends up happening.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're totally right. I'm going with your score.
So the next person / company we should talk about is Larry Ellison and Oracle.
Okay, I think of all of these, this is one of the more likely ones, given that President Trump has said publicly that he was interested in Oracle and Larry Ellison buying TikTok. So I'm going to give this a 7.
Yeah, I was thinking 6. I think we'll go through the other ones, but it just seems to be a more likely option of all of them. Of course, Oracle has no expertise in social media, and Larry Ellison, besides some relationships with Trump and just having a wealth of money and ability to help assemble others, there really isn't a true tie-in or any synergies with that business. But Yeah, for the sake of the name and everything else, I'll give it a 6. What about Meta?
One.
Yeah, I agree. 1. We have to put it out there, right? We have to say it. 1. Just don't see it
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Elon Musk / X.
Please no. But given the other entity or person that Donald Trump has said publicly that he was interested in buying TikTok, he did name Elon and Larry Ellison. So I guess of all of these, I'd give this one a 6. Hope it doesn't happen though.
I think that it probably would have to be pretty even there too. I would probably put that on the same odds of Ellison. I'd probably still put Ellison higher, but yeah, I think a 6 feels right. And of course, the even closer ties to Trump. This man is now the sole head of Doge and has, at least for better or worse, shown ability to be able to run several simultaneous companies that are unrelated to each other at once. Next one, Perplexity. So the generative AI platform has thrown its name in there as doing part of a 50-50 merger with itself and TikTok. This one, I'm probably going to put at a 3 because it felt more like a long shot of, oh, let's create some press for ourselves and throw our names out there. I mean, Perplexity raised billions and has a pretty high valuation itself. I'm a user of the platform. I do enjoy a lot of it, although you got to have a skeptical eye with some of the things that can still come out of these platforms, but it still just seems like a long shot to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same score. This feels like a long shot to me.
So this is where it gets fun. Mr. Beast.
You know, I'm going to say a 2. He would need a lot of backers to help him buy this, and he has no experience in anything but content creation. And I must admit, I am impressed by him mastering the YouTube algorithm and becoming such a big creator, but I don't know that he has what it takes, although it would be kind of funny if he did buy it. So
it would be funny. Yeah, I think 2 sounds right. I appreciate his involvement in stuff. I think he may have even thrown his name in Twitter at one point when there was some back and forth there. Impressed by everything he's able to been achieved as a creator, but I don't quite see it. I think that some of the business is spun off of him himself. Night Media or Night Capital, some of those. I've heard some mixed things about the effectiveness of those, so I don't know if that is the type of playbook that would necessarily translate itself well to managing a social media app, especially one's worth tens of billions of dollars, if not more, like TikTok.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that would not be equipped to, I would say most people would not be equipped to handle TikTok through this transition, especially, I mean, the changeover would be really challenging and building a new algorithm would be very challenging. So yeah, it's going to take a special person to be able to navigate this well. And I don't think it's going to be Mr. Beast.
Will it be Frank McCourt of Project Liberty who is putting his name in the ring alongside Kevin O'Leary, a.k.a. Mr. Wonderful of Shark Tank?
I guess I'll say 2.5. I don't know.
Yeah, you got to give it a little bit more because it does feel like it has a little bit more weight than the Mr. Beast or Meta or Perplexity or some of those, but still not at the same weight of Larry Ellison or Elon in this way.
Agreed.
Yeah. And then the last one here is Bobby Kotick, who is the former CEO of Activision Blizzard, who would put his name in. I don't think he'd put his name in solo. Maybe he would try to combine things with some of the other folks that we've mentioned here.
I'm going to go with a 4 for this. I like this slightly more because he has more of a background in entertainment. I don't know. I think that it makes a little bit more sense. I still don't see it happening. I think, honestly, overall, I have a hard time. I kind of feel like I'll believe it when I see it if this sale has to go through.
Yeah, I'm probably 3 or 4 on him as well. But I think you bring up good points on why it's likely relatively more credible than some of the others. But on that note, let's fast forward. It's December 31st, 2025. What will the parent company be of TikTok's U.S. operations?
I just don't think it's going to sell. That might not be the right prediction. It's just really hard for me to believe after how many false starts this has had. So I'm going to go with it's going to stay the same and Trump is backed off.
This definitely makes for a boring podcast because you and I agree on this. I think this is going to get pushed down as a political football. I think we obviously reached higher heights than it did in 2020, but I still just don't see this happening, because if ByteDance doesn't want to sell the algorithm and they don't have to, then it's not going to happen in that kind of way. I still think that you will have the ability to post your TikToks every now and then and
God.
update your followers on the latest and greatest in the music industry.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I hope that that's right. I do think that through all of this, the big message, no matter what happens, is that people, and we learned this with like Vine too. Vine fully
R.I.P.
got,
Let's pour out a little bit for Vine.
a little bit for Vine.
Social media is rented land, right? As great as it can be, as powerful as it can be for businesses, creators, so on and so forth, it is rented land. But Kristin, this was fun. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks again. This is great. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. For more breakdowns like this on the business of entertainment, media, and technology, make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to the latest on any of the insights that we have on Trapital, and make sure that you tell a friend about it as well. That helps continue to make sure that our show reaches the right people. Thanks again. Talk to you next time.